you guys will be playing. Do you know? I mean, while we got you here, I mean, do you have any insight into say? Is the map choices going to be like? How do the map choices work? Because I was a little taken off by this again. Like I say, Pro and Real has been down for me all day, so I couldn't look up the rules or even the times for all these matches. But how does the map picking work in these finals games here?
So essentially, we each pick our map that we want to play, and we play those maps. So if both teams end up picking the same map, then essentially whatever admin is around at the time informs the captain that you both pick the same map. Now you have to pick a different map. So they basically do that to sort out map 1 and map 2. Now if it comes down to map 3, since this is a best of 3 and not a best of 5 series in the finals here, it goes down to the same map elimination system that we've been using in previous Imlutes. And essentially it's a coin toss for whoever gets to eliminate the first map pick. And then we just work our way down the list back and forth, eliminating maps, which I'm sure you're aware of. So that pretty much settles the tiebreaker. But yeah, I mean, going in here into the grand finals, we still get to choose from any of the maps on the map list. So pretty much have freedom to play our best map if we want to again.
And I mean, I guess tell us a little bit about how like the dynamics of choosing maps, both choosing them for the cup that they did, and then also like choosing them for matches. Whenever you've got, of course, your team, Shot Callers, is essentially a North American team, and you're playing against a lot of teams in this that are either mixed or mostly European, or in this case, I think for the gold funnel it'll be entirely European, right? So how does different communities have had different, they've had two different mentalities, styles of play, and of course map lists to go along with that. How much do you take into account like picking for your team's strength versus maybe picking like against an opponent's weakness? Like how does that go into it whenever you choose sort of which maps to match up against?
Well, for our team, honestly, I think it's more about picking our strong maps. A lot of that comes down to the high ping issue. Most of our team is pretty much Americans. I think we're clearly the most American team of the cup. So I think it benefits us the most to have maps that fit the playstyle and more catering to having high ping, which kind of comes down to maps that aren't so enclosed, in tight spaces that can cause issues with translocators, as I'm sure you're aware. So if we can get a map that plays to our strengths, which we already have good fragging power, good teamwork, and all that, we can play almost any map. It'll benefit us the most when we can really actually utilize our full potential. And versus whatever is the weaker maps for the Euros, that's something that I would see more likely if we were all like similar pings. That might be more of a consideration, and I didn't have necessarily the confidence in my team that I do, because I do feel like we're a really strong team. So I'm not so much worried about what is their weak map, it's more like what are our strong maps, and then they're going to try to pick a map that obviously is not going to benefit us as much as, or it might hurt us, I should say, more than them. So it's just seeing if we can balance that out and hopefully manage to prove ourselves on the most difficult of maps, considering the ping difference.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, again, for anyone watching or for anyone listening, talking to Xios, team captain of Shot Callers. Are going to be in the gold medal match next Sunday, this cup. Mostly American lineup. In theory, you could play 5 North Americans, but you typically have Razor as your primary flag runner, along with Blimpo. So, probably expect to see 4 North Americans in your lineup as usual. But take us on this last, I think it was the semifinals match, right? Where you actually took Camper Crossings, which obviously is a map that very very much preferred in Europe over the North American scene. From what I can remember when I was playing, we actually only started playing the map in the North American scene because the European players wanted to play it in, scrims, pugs, and international games. So you guys were still able to pull out a win on that one. I think you actually went down 1-0 early on, but you came back. Like, how did that set up? Like, you guys saw them choose that map. Like, were you guys worried about it?
Honestly, I think we were a little concerned, but seeing as how we lost it in a previous match, I believe versus them, if it might have been a different team, but I think we were wanting to avenge ourselves on that map because we did lose it pretty badly previously. And we also had our proper lineup, which I do think made a difference. It was me, Chowie, Blimpo, Razor, and I want to say B-Banks.
Yeah, I think you brought B-Banks in for that one.
Yeah, so I mean, we were concerned, but I was also more confident with the fact that we had our proper lineup for offense and defense. Playing it the week or two before losing it, we got some experience, maybe learned some lessons, worked our comms out a little bit more, better. Chowie hasn't played that map in forever, so he needed to kind of dust off the rust, and we changed things up as far as just being better all around and showing great teamwork and communicating well. I think second time around, and that made a difference. So. I was really confident, and even though we were down one, I knew we could bring it home. I mean, we brought it home quite a few times already. While even though we were down for a little bit, so I could see that we were.
Well, they were solid on that. Did they play 3D? I actually don't recall if they played 3D like fully.
I want to say early on, maybe when they went up, that they might have been pulling back a little bit, but I sort of countered that by keeping the trans in base and pushing up to high mid. And,
right. Yeah, I think I remember following that.
So that helped us. Basically, our offense is strong, so they were able to get out of their base and make it to mid. Once you make it to mid on that map, if you have the cover, you can get the pickups. You can kind of seal your way home on that map. If you have enough people.
Well, you know what? If I recall, I think what I remember happening is that they would have 3D set up, and then Blimpo would pick the exit that they didn't have a defender, and Razor would just grab it and piston straight out that door and try to funnel the defenders right into Blimpo's combos and whatever damage he was putting out. I saw that work a couple times pretty well. Would you say that Razor? I mean, did you know Razor at all before picking him? He certainly integrated himself. I mean, of course, all the North American players are at least fairly familiar with each other from playing, together and against each other over the years. But he was sort of the wild card for your team. Like, how does that work out so far?
Well, it's funny you asked. I mean, surprisingly good. I've plugged on and off in Europe for several years now, and even though I've done that, I didn't know a lot of these top players on the player list from the rankings, and really Razor was one of the only ones that I knew because he's on Saints Clan, which is the clan that I sort of ring for, and they have scrims pretty regularly, inter-clan scrims or sort of ringer clan scrims versus themselves. So I knew him, and I knew he was a solid runner from just my experience in the Euro pugs. Even though he may not have had the most fragging ability, I just knew he was solid all around. He can time, he can run, he can just pickups, and so I trusted that if I could get someone like that, Blimpo could do a lot of the other work, essentially, and it worked out very well. They run together extremely well, and I'm quite happy with my pick. And I did early on feel like it might have been a wild card, and I wasn't too sure. But after seeing them play together and gel, it's actually worked out great for us. So I don't know if it was more of just I got lucky, or just that my sort of gut feelings were right.
Well, I know one of the things. I mean, every MLUT for the past couple years. I mean, there's the state of the, I guess the game right now is that it seems like pure flag runners are kind of a luxury right now. Like there's a lot of offensive players that are basically aggressive cover guys that end up with a flag in their hands. There's not that many flag runners that really have those instincts to work without a weapon in their hands, which is really what a good number one, like, you're going to have one guy run the flag most of the time, as opposed to, say, what Necro does, where Sonic and Simpson kind of alternate. They really have to be comfortable not relying on fragging ability, and I think there's a lot of players that aren't quite like that.
Yep.
There's some people that can swing both ways. I think Blippo is one of those guys that can kind of do both, but allowing him to sit back and utilize more of a cover and pickups kind of role, I think has been huge for you.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, I mean, Blippo's the kind of guy that can just kind of roam around to wherever he's needed and do all the dirty work, whether it's pulling back to save the flag, or just getting that last second grab and pistoning out, or just being a solid cover guy. But what's interesting in the dynamics is how of our team is how me and Chowie have this great dynamic of he's more in your face, spam hits with flak and rockets and stuff, and I'm more
disruptive,
kind of working the distance of exactly disruptive. So I'm, like you've said this before, I'm at that distance, shooting where they're not paying attention, and then they're whoever's attacking can't necessarily deal with that two things at the same time. And I feel like it almost can work the same way with offense, where you have one guy who's primarily extremely good at running and maybe juking around the base and just coordinating really well, timing very well, getting excellent pickups, and having another guy who can just beast mode cover with fragging and also getting great pickups. And then have that third guy who's also just all around good cover fragging.
Yeah, I would say that's actually how Notorious used to run. Is we would have one basically spearhead, just attacker, just constantly grabbing the flag, and then mostly me and Esco on cover. And depending on the map, one of us would basically be designated as a designated fallback guy, where you're in that role where your job is to make decisions on when to attack and when to turn around and slow down flag carriers. And I think it helps though. Like your team, Shot Callers is one of the better fragging teams. And I said this before you guys actually played Camper Crossings. I was saying, they're not going to be as experienced, but if you can win one-on-one fights, that can sometimes make up for other deficiencies. And I think that certainly, I think it's fair to say that Shot Callers was less experienced on that map than all of the European players. But you guys were able to overcome that. How does that though? I want to ask about the strategy, because as a lot of people have heard me say, if anyone's listening to stream, a lot of European teams tend to play that more conservative 3 defensive strategy. Certainly between Masty and Necro, we saw last week, they played 3D and actually slowed down Anfractuous, which is probably the fastest map in the game, and made it a 1-1, 10-minute overtime game. Has there been any talk amongst you guys, or any pressure maybe to try to match that by playing defensively, or have you guys made it a concerted effort to be like really aggressive? Because from what I've noticed, you guys haven't really fallen back at any point, regardless of what the match situation was. That was a really long question.
We've thought about we've thought about the whole fallback, playing more conservatively against a higher fragging team like Team Gay with Danny and stuff. But I've always viewed that as kind of a risky style, because you can slow down the other team, but at some point, if they're just generally playing better, they're going to get it across. And then you're stuck with, hoping that one of those two guys that is actually playing offense grabs, and whoever that third guy who's playing more of a fallback is aware of the situation and can time going in and getting a last second grab if need be. And I feel like it kind of throws off the rhythm of CTF, because if you have a proper 3-2 lineup and attacking, you just have that persistent rhythm instead of having to change back and forth between fallback and push and attack, and fallback and push and attack, because that can kind of get you out of sync, so to speak. So, even if we're down, I think if we're consistent with our running, we can make it out, and we can always be coordinated with our runs, with our power-ups and timing, and I just feel in general that works better for us to keep that style and just improve on it and continue to tug away and get that better at it,
Yeah, I mean,
So,
we definitely saw Necro running into trouble on Anfractious when they decided to drop back to play 3D, and Sonic and Simpson just grinded it out and kept getting that flag halfway, and they were unwilling to let loose one of their defenders to go help in mid, and they had so many opportunities that just couldn't convert, and ended up costing them the match. Again, that flag conversion rate is so important, and anytime you're playing two lone offense, I mean, you got to figure between the enemy's defenders and then their offensive players dropping back, you're going to leave them 3-2, 4-2 situations in mid, and it's just going to be tricky for them.
Yeah, and it's so much harder when you're going up against amazing runners like Danny, or one of those other guys that they're going to get out. So you want to be able to do the same on their side, essentially, because that's the most important thing is getting those flags across. And you may end up in more standoffs, but I'd rather be in that situation than worrying about the guy who's flying across the map or sneaking his way around, where having 3 defense essentially is not going to do it if they can just ninja their way across, and then you're left wondering how you're going to get more of those flags back. You need to counter that.
And I think that's kind of what it boils down to, is confidence in your team's ability to play in the transition periods. Because when you counter offense with offense, you're basically saying that you believe you can win the scrambles where both flags are gone. That's your transition periods, where you're not just sitting there facing forward playing defense, and then the other team, your other guys running forward playing offense. You got to be going around and be more dynamic. And I think that a lot of times you can get teams uncomfortable by doing that. I think that's maybe what we saw in this game tonight, where Team Gay wasn't really ready to go up against a 3-man offense from Necro, and it made their defenses move around. It made them pull out their translocators instead of their lightning guns. I mean, it made it so that the flag was constantly moving, and you can deal with that. You can definitely, there are ways to counter that, but it didn't look like they were ready to go, and I think that's something that, depending on the map, you can definitely use against your opponents.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, you got to keep people on their toes. No matter how much more challenging you may think the other guy is in terms of fragging you or killing you over and over, if you can do your best to get that flag out, I think that consistent style is very important, and sticking to your position, sticking to your guns. That's what I've always learned since I first started getting into clans and competitive play, and that's really the most honest way that you're gonna improve your game, as an attacker, and don't let it phase you. If something happens and feel like you're overwhelmed against your opponent, you can surprise them, and magic can happen. When people don't expect it, one person will lose the flag and someone else may be able to get that last second grab and pull it across. And we had some moments like that. I know on Pistola, where Blimpo would just get these amazing pickups, even though their whole entire team was there trying to frag us. I would push up, Blimpo would die, I'd get the pickup. So those pickups are so important, and it really just proves that you can pull back all you want, but as soon as someone dies, they respawn with full health, they can run to get another pickup, and then you can just keep repeating that until you just drag the flag to your face.
Anyone who's ever played against Team 4th back in their heyday knows exactly how frustrating that can be, to get 4 or 5 kills on the flag carrier and still not be able to return because they're just constantly relaying that flag. And that's something that I'd actually like to see. Yeah, definitely. They were definitely extremely, and it wasn't an accident. I mean, that was their game plan. And I think that's something that I would like to see as a statistic in UT4 once we can get all that interface stuff up and running, because I think it would be very interesting to see things like how effectively teams are able to get pickups, because that can be so important, like you say, especially on maps where, there's some maps where you just know your flag carrier is not going to make it solo. You just know that. Like, ever play like on say Mall, for instance. You take so much damage coming in and going out. You're not going to solo run a flag on that map, so you just have to hope. As a cover guy, sometimes you pull your translocator out instead of a weapon, just waiting so that when they die, you can get it right back up. That's how, like I say, some of the 4th runners would do it, and it's a risk, but man, if you can get that flag moving, it can be so frustrating as someone trying to return it.
Well, and that's what paid off, I think, so much for 4th team back in the day, is that they weren't necessarily the highest fragging team. Obviously going against the Team Horizon, but just because they were so quick and intelligent and knew what was important about the pickups, that they could manage to get it across, even though their depths compared to the other team was so much higher. That they would just continually get that flag pick up. And on Maul, it's a very frag-heavy map. But if you can get someone to piston across, you can get someone who's there, close proximity cover, continually getting the pickups, continually communicating. You can just prove that teamwork is above all just as important as being able to frag someone.
Yeah, we've definitely seen some matches already in this tournament where the nets and the frag counts didn't necessarily indicate which team was dominating the games, because as we all know, the objectives are way more important.
Yep.
Well, all right. I don't want to get too much into this because, again, I don't want to give away any free strategy. I think we've seen both teams play enough, though. I think we kind of have an idea of what's going to happen, and I think Mass D, despite their name, I don't feel like they're going to be choosing a super defensive match. I feel like we're going to have a high-scoring final next week.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. They've got a solid offense and a solid defense, so we're going to have.
I definitely think two of the best well-rounded teams in this draft. I mean, this one and of course Necro, I think also extremely well-rounded, and not surprised to see those three teams. I think that's a key in this draft, is that it wasn't the teams that just had a good defensive pair or just a good offensive pair. It was teams that had a little bit of everything, so they didn't really have any huge weaknesses, are the ones that we're seeing make it to these finals.
Indeed.
Well, all right, I'm getting pretty hungry, so I'm gonna hop off here and grab me some food. For those of you watching, thanks for sticking with us. Started a little bit later, didn't last as long as we had hoped, but Team Necro just being Team Necro, they finally looked back up into form. And I mean, if they played like they did today, last week, I'm not even. It would be tough to say. I mean, they may have even been playing in the finals next week, and it may have been Mass D here. But both teams played well last week. Necro showed back up again this week, and we'll see what Mass D can bring against with Xios here's team Shot Callers. Is it about any idea on the match time yet?
Yeah, I think we're shooting for 2100 CET, so 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. That's our goal there.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially where we've been. We have had a couple early matches in the past, but just in case anyone's watching, that's when you can expect to tune in here. I'll probably be on, 15 to 20 minutes before match time, getting things set up and talking with whoever I can get around. Xios here won't be here next week. Maybe I can find myself a co-caster. But we'll be around. Thanks for hanging out with us, Xios. Thanks for watching us, those of you who did, for 12 minutes of Brindle Keep. Again, next Sunday, you're going to look at about 2 o'clock. I'm going to be around for the gold medal match and finally finish this season off.
Stick around, and thanks for having me on, and count on none of us dropping from the game as well, even if we get our asses handed to us.
All right. Thanks, Nick, and thanks for watching, y'all.
Have a good one. Bye, everybody.